Hi, Cyd, and hello, beautiful people. I'm so happy to have you here on the channel to talk about the bundle, which I'm super excited to be a part of. And, in case people don't know who you are, do you want to just share a little bit about yourself and we can talk a little bit about this exciting opportunity with the bundle?
Sure. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Cyd Potter. I'm a longtime nutrition educator and a coach and an author and a licensed food for life instructor. And I have been teaching whole food plant-based for over 25 years now, believe it or not. So
Wow.
yeah, lots of things going on. I created this course for the bundle. It's a label reading course called Label Reading Tips to Make Smart Choices. Ultra processed foods are all the talk right now, and there's so many of them in the marketplace. I think 75%, no, 73% of the foods in our grocery stores are considered ultra processed. So I created this little label reading course just to give people some tips because I think people are a lot of times they're confused about how to read a label. So I think this is helpful to people, and I will tell you more about it. But we are talking about the bundle first and foremost, right? This
Yes.
bundle is available from March 1st to March 10th only. There's over 70 products in it now. Is that correct at this point in time?
I think it's even up to
Yeah.
73 now. So that's even
Okay.
exciting. And it might even be more by the time we're watching this.
Right. Because we're pre-recording because I'm going to be traveling soon. Plus, I think it's worth over $5,000 if you were to add up everything that's in the bundle. So it's really worth the price of $49. And again, it's only available for 10 days. So we're excited to talk about that and to share things beside my course. There's other things in the bundle, which I'll share with you at the end, which I think are really cool as well.
Yeah, and I'll just say, because we are part of the bundle, we get to preview ahead of time. And I
Mhm.
did get a chance to look at your course, and it's amazing. I think it's a wonderful addition to everything else, and so I'm excited about what you're going to share. But there are things about people doing recipes and yoga classes and all kinds of things that are really exciting. There's lots of raw stuff in there and just you name it. I feel like there's tons of stuff in there. And yes, like you said, we'll talk about it more at the end. But at any rate, this is my first year doing it, and you've done it, I think, of what, 3 years or more? How many years have you been in the
Yeah,
bundle?
this will be my fourth year. Is this the fourth year of the bundle? I think it is 22,
Wow.
23, 24. Yeah, so this will be my fourth year in the bundle. I was in the original one and I've done it every year. So it's one project I'm really excited about.
Wow, that's great. So, anyways, what do you want to, you said you wanted to share a little something, a little like, preview of what you put in the bundle. Maybe if you want to go ahead and do that now, we can, or we can chat some more. It's up to you.
No, let's get going with it. I do have some slides to show, so I'll share my screen.
Ooh, okay.
How is that? Can you see that okay?
Yes, that looks perfect. I can see it.
All right.
My mouse
So
isn't.
we talked about processed foods, and that's what this course is going to be focusing on because things that we buy in the store that are processed. But are all processed foods unhealthy? And the answer to that is definitely no, they're not. There are many things that are acceptable, such as canned beans and salsa, marinara sauce, whole grain pastas, certain cereals, and even some packaged soups can be part of a healthy diet. But the only way we know for sure is to read the label. So the term processed refers to anything that changes a food from its original form. And the USDA lists it as anything that's been crushed, cut, chopped, diced, sliced, pitted, blended, pureed, juiced, or dried. So that's pretty much everything in the store if you're not in the produce section. And we process foods all the time in our kitchens, right? With our food processors, when you think about it, and our blenders and our stoves. So just because a food is processed does not necessarily mean it's bad for us. However, the more processed a food is, the more health risks it poses. So let's take a quick look at some definitions here. Minimally processed foods are processed at their peak freshness to lock in that nutritional quality and that freshness. That would be things like frozen fruits and vegetables, or pre-cut veggies, or bagged lettuce and greens, or canned tomatoes. It also refers to foods that have undergone processes like drying or freezing or vacuum packaging that changes the original state of the food but doesn't add to the food. And I think Butler soy curls would be a good example for that, because Butler soy curls, there's only one ingredient, organic soybeans, but it doesn't look like a soybean, right? It looks like a little extruded tube, which it is.
Yeah.
And then moving up the spectrum a bit comes processed foods, which are foods that are altered in some way, the original food. It might be fortified with things like calcium or other vitamins or minerals. Um, Sometimes they add ingredients for flavor and texture as well, even oils and sweeteners and spices and preservatives. And examples of processed foods would be breakfast cereals, jarred pasta sauce, salad dressings, certain crackers and breads, and certain pastas. So these foods would get a yellow light until we read the label. And then we have the ultra processed foods, which have significantly changed the makeup of the original food. And these foods have been altered to include fats, sugars, salt, dyes, oils, and they're typically loaded with additives and preservatives to maintain a long shelf life too. These foods are the worst of the worst because ultra processed foods really pose some health risks, which we'll talk about shortly. But these foods include things like frozen meals or pre-made microwave meals, canned
Oh,
convenience foods, packaged soups, even granola bars and cookies and sweets and candy, even fake cheeses and meats, fried foods, sugary cereals, chips and soda. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And these foods get a red light. So, in case you're wondering how many processed foods Americans are eating, ultra processed, I'll just call them UPFs for short. And here's that statistic that 73% of the foods in our grocery stores are UPFs. So,
wow.
not surprisingly, the United States is ranked as the top consumer of UPFs, with the UK and Canada close behind. So UPFs comprise 58% of the calories consumed in the United States. So think about that for a second. Nearly 60% of our calories are coming from these ultra processed foods. That's a huge number. But even more disturbing, a study by Tufts University looked at nearly 34,000 kids and found that their intake of UPFs has jumped to 67% of their calories. So that was in 2018. That was 6 years ago. I didn't find a current stat, but it probably could be a little higher now. So that's a lot of calories coming from ultra processed foods for our children.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So, how are these UPFs impacting our health? Well, here's just a brief list of health conditions that are associated with UPFs. And this is just a partial list. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this particular topic. So, I just share this with you and all that information about UPF. So just to point out how important label reading actually is, right? Sometimes we might think, yeah, okay, we'll just look at the front of the box, and if it makes some claims, we'll buy it. But that's not what we need to do. For anyone who cares what they're actually ingesting, then label reading is crucial. So many consumers, though, they find labels to be confusing or misleading or difficult to interpret. So the label reading course that I've got in the bundle, it dives into a few basic guidelines to help us sort through that confusion and to make wise choices. And I just like to note here that my goal is not to tell anyone what products to buy or what products not to buy. I'm simply here to inform you of some label reading tips so that you can make the best decisions for you, make an informed decision based on your preferences. So the
Wow.
first tip I share is to ignore the crafty claims on the box. And the
Mm.
course is separated into several different lessons. So each lesson has its own topic. The lesson here is crafty claims. And packaged foods are some of the most deceptive foods out there. You'd be surprised at how many products are being promoted as healthy, but they're actually filled with junk ingredients. So manufacturers often feature these misleading health claims on the front of the box in order to lure us into purchasing that unhealthy product. And they know what types of diets are trending too. Like you'll notice on the shelves today, you'll see keto friendly on a lot of products because they know that keto diets are trending high. So they'll adjust their labels to go with what's popular as well. So the course goes into detail about those deceptive claims. And I just like to keep in mind, have everyone know that just because a product says it's natural or organic on the front of the packaging doesn't necessarily mean that the nutritional content is healthy. Because whether it's organic or not, a cookie is still a cookie and can be filled with a lot of sugar and fat, right? Just because
Yeah.
it's organic. So we'll look at several claims, crafty claims in the course. Now, here's a typical example of a label. This one's for a breakfast cereal, and labels are usually broken into two sections. There's that nutrition facts box, and then there's the ingredient list shown here below it. And those two sections, they can be positioned differently on various products. Sometimes they're not even next to each other. But the best way to evaluate a product is always to read the ingredient list first, and often you'll have to go no further than that. So that's the first tip. Always read the ingredient list first. And then if the ingredients are okay, then we'll check the nutrition facts box for some things which I'll tell you about in just a second. So ingredients are listed in order by weight. So beginning with the most predominant ingredient, then followed in descending order by smaller weight amounts of those ingredients. So that means that a product contains a lot more of the ingredients at the start of the list and less amounts of the ingredients at the end of the list, if that makes sense. So with this particular product, we see that wheat flour, highlighted there in yellow, is the first ingredient, followed by unsalted butter, highlighted there in blue, and then brown sugar, white sugar, and so on, all the way down to the cinnamon, the last ingredient. So we really need to look no further than the first two ingredients here to know that this item is not really compliant with a healthy diet, because the first two ingredients are refined flour and dairy. And I'll show you how to spot refined versus whole grains in another part of the class. So the ingredient list should be the first place we always look. And as I mentioned, you'll often have to go no further than that. So then there's a lesson in the course about sugars, and Americans are consuming roughly 20 teaspoons of added sugar per day. That's 60 pounds a year. So think of that. That's like somebody bringing a 5-pound bag of sugar to your doorstep every month and expecting you to eat that. And that's per person. So teenagers are consuming 22 teaspoons on average. So in the course, we explain the difference between refined sugars and natural sugars, and we discuss some of the negative health concerns that result from consuming inflammatory refined sugars, because refined sugars are indeed inflammatory. And we'll talk about which products typically contain a lot of sugar. And for those who are not following an sos-free diet, that's a diet that's free of sugar, oil, and salt, then to what degree should we limit our sugar intake if we're not following an sos-free diet? We'll talk about the recommendations from the American Heart Association and Harvard Health. And you'll learn how to quickly tell how much sugar's in a product just by looking at the label. And you'll also see how sugars can be listed in so many different ways on an ingredient list. In fact, I show a cereal in the course that has 12 different types of sugar in it, because they don't want to list sugar as the first ingredient. Remember how ingredients are listed by weight? So manufacturers don't want to put sugar as the first ingredient, so they'll break it up into different types of sugar to get around that. And we then will look at some products, like we'll look at a jam. We'll look at this natural jelly, for example, to see how much sugar's in that, and some soda pop. And we'll look at Bobo's strawberry stuffed oat bites, just to name a few things. There's a lot of product evaluation in the course, so I'm not just going to give you the tips. We're going to do some hands-on label reading so that you can get comfortable with it as well. Then there's a lesson on oils and fats. And we do need some dietary fat to support healthy body functions, but just how much do we need? Well, for optimal health, fat consumption should be around 10 to 15% of our calories. That's according to many of our lifestyle medicine doctors. The American Cancer Society, they promote 20% fat, but the World Health Organization advocates for 15% fat as well. So let's shoot for 10 to 15% fat. After all, oatmeal, chickpeas, and quinoa, all of those foods are around 15% fat, and they're all fine to eat, right? So those are fine. Now, does that mean we can never eat any higher fat plant foods like nuts or seeds or avocado? No, it doesn't mean that at all. And you'll learn more about that in the class about how these things balance out. Then you'll learn to tell how fatty a product is. In other words, what percentage of the calories in a product is coming from fat. And it's a quick calculation, and it's based on the fact that there are 9 calories in 1 gram of fat. And it doesn't matter the source of the fat. It could be chicken fat or cheese fat or avocado fat. All fat, no matter if it's animal fat or plant fat, has 9 calories per gram. So the course will teach you a quick calculation that you can use in order to determine the percentage of calories coming from fat in a product. And if that product has saturated fat, we'll use that same calculation to determine how much of that fat is indeed saturated fat. For example, here's diet cheese slices, right? Cheddar cheese slices. These are kind of a popular dairy-free cheese that are on the market. And when we start with the ingredient list here, we see highlighted there in blue, Dia's oat cream blend, which contains some oat flour and pea protein and cultures and enzymes. And then we see coconut oil is the second ingredient, which is a big red flag because if you see coconut oil, there's going to be saturated fat in that product for sure. So it's your decision if this product goes back on the shelf right now. For me, it would go back on the shelf right now because of the coconut oil and some other things that I explain about in the class. But just let's still calculate the percentage of fat in this product just for practice. So based on the calculation that you'll learn in the class, over 64% of the calories in this product are coming from fat. And when we calculate the saturated fat, we find the same percentage. So not only is this product very high in fat, all 64% of the fat is saturated fat, which is, again, one of the highest inflammatory food components we could eat and leads to a variety of health issues. Other things you'll learn about oils and added fats is a time-saving hack in which you can use your phone to just ask it what the answer is, and I'll teach you how to ask your phone that calculation, and it will tell you without you having to get your calculator out or anything. You'll learn about trans fats, which are hydrogenated oils. That's where oils are processed with hydrogen. And even our government cracked down on trans fats years ago, but there are still some products out there that contain it. Peanut butter is one. If you're purchasing peanut butter, you'll still see hydrogenated oils there. And tortilla shells are another big one. They almost always contain hydrogenated oils. Then you'll also learn a labeling loophole, like how can a product say 0 fat and 0 calories on the front of the package, when in fact that product doesn't indeed contain fat and calories. So how did they get away with that? And lastly, if you'd rather evaluate your fat intake based on the number of fat grams you're consuming, rather than the percentage of fat in a product, I show you how to do that too. Then there's a lesson on sodium or salt, and sodium is essential for human function, but we only need about 500 milligrams a day, which we get naturally through our plant foods. So many of you who are following an sos-free diet, free of sugar, oil, and salt, you don't consume any added salt, while other people that I know allow for minimal amounts of salt. So we talk about the current recommendations for salt intake, as well as the biggest sources of sodium. 70% of our sodium intake is coming from processed foods, and meats in restaurants are also really high in sodium. Also, the type of salt used, whether it's table salt or sea salt or pink salt, That doesn't change the recommendations because all salts contain sodium, but the amounts may differ a little bit based on the crystal size, and all of that is explained in the course as well. So you'll also learn to what it looks like to stay low salt if that's what you decide to do. And then we'll discuss the various health concerns associated with consuming excess sodium. And we take a look at which products are notorious for being high in sodium, like soups and frozen entrees. And we'll look at a few examples. Here's just one example from the course. This is Amy's Chinese Noodles and Veggies. And we see the sodium listed here by the blue arrow is 780 milligrams, which is really high, especially if your goal is to stay low salt for the day. So again, you'll learn what that looks like to stay low salt. And you'll also note here, one thing that's really important to note is the serving size. And I point this out in the course right up at the start of the course. The serving size here is 1 tray, highlighted there in yellow. You see that? So that would be the whole product. But if there were 2 servings in this item and you're planning to eat the whole thing, you'd have to double that amount of sodium and the calories and the sugars and all of that. All right, then we will go on in the course to look at products for an overall view of sugar, oil, and salt, such as this no sugar added mint chip frozen dessert. And this really attracts me because mint chip is my favorite flavor. But when we read the ingredient list here, first we see coconut milk, then followed by oatmeal, and then coconut water and coconut oil, and then erythritol, which is an artificial sweetener, chicory root extract, sunflower oil, more erythritol, and so on. And so as much as I love mint chip, this product would go back on the shelf for me personally because of the oils and the erythritol. Erythritol is a questionable sugar alcohol that Dr. Greger and the Cleveland Clinic, they both advised not eating this product. So just for practice though, when we run the numbers on this product, just for practice, we find that 81% of the calories in this product is coming from fat, with 59% of that fat being saturated fat. Again, that's that coconut oil. So that's why it's listed in red there. The sodium is 10 milligrams, which is not horrible. And it has no added sugar. It claimed that on the front, it says no added sugar, but instead they are using a sugar alcohol called erythritol. And so when we calculate that, each serving has 2 teaspoons of erythritol. And so in the course, you'll learn how to evaluate all of these things. And then we also have a lesson on whole grains versus refined grains. And all grains start out as whole grains, right? Every grain that's grown is a whole grain. Grains are made up of 3 parts, the bran, the germ, and the endosperm. And it's all 3 of those parts is what makes them such a powerhouse of nutrition to battle disease. But those 2 outer parts, the outer layers called the bran and the germ, that's where all the nutrition lives. That's where the fiber and the B vitamins, the antioxidants, the protein, the healthy fats, and the minerals like folate and iron, all of those things are contained in those 2 outer layers. But it's the combination of all 3 layers that we are looking for. We want the whole grain. So refined grains have had those outer layers stripped, and they're thereby removing most of the nutrition. In fact, refining a grain reduces at least 17 key new ingredients according to the wholegrainscouncil.org. And they say that once the grains are stripped of their outer layers and ground into flour, it can then be chemically treated with bleach. Vitamins and minerals are added or sprayed into the mix to legally label the product as enriched. Additives and preservatives are also added to lengthen the shelf life and to alter the color and the taste. So refined flours are used in bread, hot dog buns, pastas, pastries, cookies, cereals, pretzels, crackers, and so much more. So in the course, you will learn how to distinguish between whole grains and refined grains. And just because a package says wheat bread does not mean it's a whole grain. You have to read the ingredient list. Sometimes a loaf of wheat bread is really an enriched, refined product that they've colored dark in order to make it appear more nutritious to you as the consumer. So in the course too, you'll learn why this matters so much to your health. What's wrong with eating refined grains? We're going to talk about that. And we look at some crafty claims too, like multi-grain and 7-grain and good source of whole grains. You'll see that on some products. What does that actually mean? And then we'll talk about different types of flour, like durum wheat flour and semolina flour. Are those whole grains? Well, here's a picture, for example, of Barilla elbow pasta. And the ingredients are semolina wheat and durum wheat flour. So would that be a whole grain? Well, the answer is no. And the course explains why this particular product is not a whole grain, but why the whole wheat elbow pasta that you find at Walmart is indeed a whole grain. So we'll look at a variety of other products too, including some breads and crackers and cake mixes. And then we'll move on to the lesson about artificial sweeteners, which can seem like an attractive alternative to sugar because they contain no calories and they're intensely sweet, 200 to 700 times sweeter than table sugar, depending on the artificial sweetener that you're choosing. And these sweeteners are used in soft drinks, candy, jellies, dairy products, puddings, pretty much anything labeled sugar-free. You need to beware of anything labeled sugar-free. And in the course, you'll learn a little more about the popular brands on the market like Equal and Splenda and Sweet and Low, among others. And then we'll talk about some side effects and health concerns associated with artificial sweeteners. And we'll look at the issues associated with those sugar alcohols like xylitol and sorbitol and erythritol and others. And then we'll discuss some healthier choices that you could make while pointing out that even healthy sugars should be eaten sparingly and within a certain limit, right? Just because it's a healthy sugar doesn't mean it's free reign to just drink that syrup. We want to know what would be an acceptable thing to have per day if you're watching your sugar intake. And of course, if you're SOS free, you're not eating any refined sugar, but maybe that as a coach, I know that oftentimes people are consuming too many healthy sugars, and that's why they're not reaching their goals. So we talk about that in the course a little bit. Plus, we'll look at several sugar-free products to find out what they are using instead of sugar. For example, we'll look at Skinny Girl's fat-free, sugar-free poppy seed dressing. And we'll look at Smucker's sugar-free blackberry jam and Diet Coke, and then sugar-free Crystal Light. So what are the manufacturers using instead of sugar in these products? That's another reason why label reading is so important. We need to know what we are ingesting. Then there's a lesson on food dyes, preservatives and additives, and the FDA system regarding these items. And we'll talk about which products undergo safety reviews and which products do not. And we'll talk about the FDA's GRAS system, which stands for Generally Recognized as Safe, which is the most criticized aspect of our food regulation process. And how since 2016, manufacturers can now self-determine the GRAS status of an ingredient with no FDA oversight at all, which has created this major loophole, resulting in many ingredients being in our food supply that the FDA and the public is not even aware of. So we will look at some products here. There are thousands of additives, and new ones are being developed every day. So, I mean, you could spend a month just on this topic. Some of these additives are listed as artificial flavoring, which means it's a man-made product, or it could say natural flavoring, which could be any type of highly processed animal or plant byproduct. So a natural flavor could actually be an animal byproduct. And then we will talk about the food dyes that are commonly used, like blue 1, blue 2, green 3, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. Now, red 3 has recently, just within the past couple months, red 3 has been banned here in the United States, but that does not take effect until January of 2027. So in the meantime, these dye-colored foods that are usually targeted toward children, but not always, they are sometimes referred to as the rainbow of risks due to the increased risks they pose for our children, especially with hyperactivity and attention disorders, which is very concerning when you consider how many dye-colored candies and frostings and cereals and beverages these kids are exposed to. But again, it's not just the kids' foods. It's in many regular foods too. You'll see yellow 5 in almost every jar of pickles once you start looking at the ingredient list in pickles. So in the course, excuse me, you'll learn more about the concerns about these chemical dyes because that's what they are. They're chemicals. Oops, I forgot to mention the titanium dioxide. They're also known as titanium white or pigment white 6, which is another color additive that's used in salad dressings, chewing gum, candy and sweets, snacks, coffee creamers, breads, and other processed food. And what that does is it gives the product a white appearance, or it boosts and brightens the other colors that are in the product. Now, this chemical was deemed unacceptable in Europe several years ago because of genotoxicity concerns, meaning it has properties that could damage our DNA. So food dyes are found in thousands of candies, cereals, Pop-Tarts, Cheetos, fruit cocktail even, baked goods, cake mixes, beverages, and so much more. Now, here's a box of Fruity Pebbles. So in addition to the refined rice, sugar, and oil, which are the first 3 ingredients there highlighted in yellow, we see both artificial and natural flavors, as well as red 40, yellow 6, yellow 5, blue 1, and BHA, BHT, which is BHA and BHT are chemicals with carcinogenic concerns, basically. They're suspected of thyroid disorders and a whole list of other health problems. Carrageenan is an additive. It's a seaweed derived from seaweed byproduct, but it's surrounded by controversy over the fact that it can cause digestive issues and leaky gut and so much more there. And then there's aluminum. We talk about propylparaben, potassium bromate, all of these additives we'll discuss briefly. But then I will point to you to 2 comprehensive lists. I'll give you the links to 2 lists where you can really see all of the additives that we will want to avoid. Then there's a lesson on hidden animal products. How can you spot hidden animal products, right? The things that we want to avoid, such as meat, poultry, fish, dairy, and eggs. And we'll look at a number of products there for examples. And then we'll put everything into practice as we go along to bolster your confidence with label reading. And you'll also get an overview of all the tips are provided for you in a PDF form, so you can print that out and have it. And there's also a little business card size purse or wallet guide that you could take to the store with you for a quick reference, like what was that calculation for the fat, that's on that little card if you wanted to carry that with you. And the bottom line is that label reading is crucial if your goal is to make smart choices, right? Even though it's going to take a little time to get used to this, it will become second nature to you after just a few trips to the store. And then it'll be worth all the effort because your health is worth the effort, both now and in the long term, right? We want to protect our health from these chemicals. But even more important than packaged foods is to focus on low-fat, whole plant foods and eat as close to nature as possible. Look for minimally processed foods with a short, recognizable ingredient list, and then limit the amount of those packaged foods in your diet. And then lastly, if you have any questions, I invite you to contact me. My email address there, cydnotter@cydnotter.com, or my website, cydnotter.com. And that's where you'll find a free webinar, some free dessert smoothies, and a free 21-day meal plan, and information about my book called The Plan A Diet. Okay, talking. I'm going to stop sharing.
Wow,
Yeah.
I just want to say that was amazing. You were able to make it in such simple uh, explain it in a simple way where people can really understand, because you're right. It's very difficult to navigate and understand with all of the stuff that you see on the front and then the back, and what does all of this stuff mean. And so I really appreciate it, and I'm super excited that this is offered in the bundle, because even for me, I love to continue to hear things and explained by different people, and it's also a great reminder. So I just got to say, you did a great job, and I'm super excited. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And let's just talk about some other things in the bundle and how people could get that bundle within a short time frame, right? March 1st to March 10th.
Yeah, the 10 days, that we got to make sure that if you want it, and I don't know why you wouldn't, you can definitely take this opportunity to get it.
Absolutely. And it's really worth it too. I mean, this class that I'm talking about in itself is worth $39, so if you're paying $49 for the entire bundle, and even if you picked only 4 or 5 things out of the bundle that you really wanted, you're way ahead of the game. You're still getting a really good deal, a really good bargain.
Yeah, I know that there are sometimes, people that feel like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming, because you do get so much. And like you
Mhm.
said, you might just find that a few of the items are plenty for you. And if you add it up, like you said, you'll see that you still get your money. But if you decide at some point to go ahead and look at all the other things, even if it's just one thing every once in a while, you might come
Mhm.
across something that you didn't even know, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad, I have this.
Mhm.
So I saw some yoga programs and lots of video series classes, a lot of raw recipe books and regular recipe books. And there was even like a cheese and cracker, is there
Mhm.
anything that stands out to you that, you would want to share that's in there for people to kind of know what's coming?
Yeah, there's a pizza class in there.
Yes.
Yeah, there's pizza, how to make pizza, right? There's an anti-aging class in there, a lot of jumpstart recipes. Your amazing book, Give Plants a Chance, right? Your recipe book is in there.
Yes,
Um,
thank you. Yeah.
yeah, a
And
21-day. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say about the pizza class. I think that was by Kathy Hester. And
Hmm.
there are so many wonderful contributors there, people that I am familiar with and some that I'm not. And so that's another opportunity to learn about, or, see other things that, that people have to offer. So
Right. Yeah. So click the link that's below this video, and then you can read more about the bundle itself. But it's the vegan health bundle, and it's only available from March 1st to March 10th, 2025. So don't delay, because if you forget, you won't be able to get it on March 11th.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And just to say, once you get it, just in case somebody's watching and they've never done this before, you go ahead and you click the link and you follow the instructions. And what you get is all these different links, right? And you download each one, and it doesn't take very long. And then you have it on your computer. And then you can move it or store it or do what you want with. You do have, I think, isn't it right, up to a year to download it?
Hmm.
But when I've purchased in the past, before I was part of it, I would just download everything right away. Then you don't have to think about it. And then if you can put it on a different drive, or put it wherever you want, and then you have access anytime you want, and you don't have to worry about it ever expiring. So that's also really exciting, because you have the window to purchase, but once you download, it's yours forever.
Hmm. Good point. Yes. Well,
Yes,
thanks, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me today to talk about the bundle.
yes, absolutely. And thank you for coming on. This was fun, and I enjoy hearing and learning from you and sharing. And like you said, I'm going to say it to everyone. Don't delay. Go ahead. Click the button below. I guarantee you will be excited and happy you did. So thank you, Cyd, for your time. I so appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care, everyone. And don't forget to eat your greens. Give plants a chance. Bye-bye.